Assalamu alaikum, and welcome back to our channel, Pakistan Zindabad, the next world superpower. This is episode 40, and today we're doing a deep dive into an idea from the book The Generals of Pakistan, written by Mr. Zaheer Ahmad Meer. We're going to be explaining a concept that's changing everything we thought we knew about conflict: fifth-generation warfare. Okay, so let's jump right in. What exactly are we talking about here? First thing you need to do is forget everything you've seen in movies about traditional battlefields. The central argument in the source material is that the new front line, well, it isn't a physical place you can point to on a map. The whole game has shifted from conquering land with tanks to influencing the hearts and minds of an entire population. And this quote from the book just absolutely nails it. Let's break that down. Silent, because you might not even realize a war is being waged against you. Borderless, because a tweet, a rumor, or a fake news story can cross a continent in a split second. And maybe most important of all, psychological. Because the real goal isn't to destroy buildings, it's to break a nation's spirit, its unity, and its trust in itself. So how does this so-called invisible war actually work? Let's move past the big ideas and look at the actual playbook being described in this analysis. Here it is, the core idea right here. The objective isn't to roll tanks into a capital city anymore. No, it's about getting a country to basically tear itself apart from the inside. You can win the whole thing, often without firing a single shot, just by creating so much internal chaos and division that the nation fractures all on its own. This slide really puts the evolution of conflict into perspective, doesn't it? We've gone from a world defined by bullets, bombs, and borders, all physical things, to a new era of bytes, beliefs, and banks. Think about that. The weapons are no longer just things you can hold. They're invisible forces that can target a country's economy, its social fabric, and the very reality that its citizens believe to be true. Now, this isn't all just theory. The source material brings this idea down to earth by focusing on a specific, real-world example, arguing that Pakistan is actually a primary target of this new kind of warfare. So, the big question is, why Pakistan? According to the analysis we're looking at, it is not random at all. The country is allegedly in the crosshairs for two very specific reasons: its most powerful strategic assets and its absolutely critical position on the world stage. And this slide just breaks it down perfectly. First, you have the nuclear shield. That makes a direct, conventional military invasion incredibly risky, if not impossible, for any opponent. Second, its geopolitical position. It's a crossroads of major global interests. So the argument is that because a conventional war is pretty much off the table, these very strengths, ironically, make Pakistan a prime target for this unconventional kind of attack. Okay, so we've covered the why, but what about the how? Well, the source lays out this fascinating five-front attack, what it calls the modern playbook for waging this invisible war. And this right here is the playbook. It's a five-front assault. And what's really crucial is how these tactics all feed into each other. You see, you start by manipulating the narrative, controlling the story. Then you launch cyber attacks to undermine trust in key institutions like banks or the government. This gets amplified by a flood of propaganda and fake news, which then fuels social media-driven unrest in the streets. And finally, you apply economic pressure to squeeze the nation from the outside. It's not one single attack. It's more like a death by 1,000 cuts, all designed to create the maximum possible internal pressure. When you put all this together, it leads us to a huge concluding question. If the very nature of war is changing this dramatically, how can a nation even begin to defend itself? It's one of the toughest challenges of our time, for sure. And this is the question we really want to leave you with. In a world where wars are fought with information, how do you defend the truth? When the battlefield is the human mind and the weapon of choice is a viral post, you have to wonder. The most critical front line might just be the defense of reality itself. Thanks for joining us.
Today, we are diving deep into a really complex world, the world of modern conflict. This is a battlefield where, honestly, narratives are the new weapons and perception is the territory you're fighting for. We're going to be looking at this through the lens of the book The Generals of Pakistan by Zaheer Ahmad Meer, to explore how this whole strategy of information warfare has evolved into a super high-stakes, high-tech game.
So, let's just kick things off with a huge question. How do you fight a modern war without ever firing a single bullet? I know, it sounds like something straight out of science fiction, but as you're about to see, it is the absolute reality of conflict in the 21st century. And it's really the core theme of what we're breaking down today.
All right, here's our game plan. We're going to start by looking back at the historical threats that kind of shaped Pakistan's first line of defense. Then, we'll get into this dramatic shift to something called fifth-generation warfare, or 5GW. After that, we'll break down the modern, full-spectrum response. And finally, we'll look at what all of this means for the future.
Okay, so to really get what's happening now, we've got to rewind a bit. This idea of an information shield didn't just pop up out of nowhere. No, it was forged in the fire of some very distinct historical challenges, and each one of them required a brand new kind of defense.
This timeline really shows you how the threat level just kept ramping up. Back in the 60s, under Ayub Khan, the big challenge was pretty classic wartime propaganda. Then you fast forward to the 80s, and Zia-ul-Haq is dealing with these sophisticated Soviet disinformation campaigns during the war in Afghanistan. And then boom, post 9/11, General Musharraf is trying to navigate the insane pressure of a 24/7 global news cycle. With each era, the information battlefield just got more and more complex.
And what came out of all these experiences was what the book calls an information defense shield. Now, this was a reactive strategy, right? An attack would come in, propaganda, disinformation, whatever, and the shield would go up. Sure, it got stronger and more sophisticated with every fight, but its basic nature was always defensive. It was always playing catch-up.
But here's the thing. That purely defensive way of thinking, it was about to become dangerously obsolete. A whole new kind of conflict was emerging on the horizon, one that a simple shield could never, ever hope to defend against. And this right here is the absolute crucial point. The whole idea of a battlefield has been completely turned on its head. The front line isn't a physical place anymore. It's everywhere. It's in the news you read, it's on the social media you scroll through, it's in the data on your phone.
And this is fifth-generation warfare. It's a type of conflict where the main goal is to destabilize a whole country from the inside out. I mean, just imagine this. A totally convincing deepfake video of a political leader suddenly appears online. At the exact same time, a cyber attack hits the nation's power grid, and an army of social media bots starts spreading wild rumors to create mass panic. Not a single shot is fired, but the country is thrown into absolute chaos. That's 5GW.
So the big question is, how on earth do you defend against a threat that's everywhere and nowhere all at once? Well, according to the source material, the answer came with a complete strategic overhaul. It meant moving away from a passive shield to a really active, full-spectrum defense, a shift credited to the current Army Chief, General Munir.
Okay, so this new strategy is built on 6 key pillars. First, you've got the Cybersecurity Command. These are your digital frontline defenders. Then there's AI-driven intelligence to sift through massive amounts of data and spot threats before they blow up. You have narrative response units to actively fight back against disinformation. Digital monitoring cells are there to keep a constant eye on the information environment. And this one is so important. Specialized deepfake counter labs to fight those AI-generated lies. And the whole thing is tied together by a hybrid warfare doctrine, which basically gets all these different efforts, military and non-military, working towards the same strategic goal.
And you really can't overstate how significant this is. The change in the words says everything. We've gone from talking about a shield, which is a simple reactive tool, to an architecture, a complex, proactive, and deeply integrated system that's designed for a totally new era of conflict.
All right, so let's pull all these threads together and look at the bigger picture. The story we're seeing here is one of incredibly rapid and necessary evolution. It's a strategic transformation from a simple shield into a complex, modern system of defense.
This slide really just lays it all out, doesn't it? The strategy went from being reactive to proactive. So not just waiting for attacks, but actually trying to anticipate them. It moved from the analog world of, say, propaganda leaflets to the purely digital domain of cyberspace. And it evolved from a simple defensive posture to a full-spectrum approach that pulls in all these different domains of modern warfare.
So let's just boil this all down to the absolute key takeaways. First, information warfare is always changing and it's evolving dramatically. Because of that, Pakistan's strategy had to transform from that old shield idea into a proactive architecture. This new approach is completely tied to advanced tech like AI and cyber command. And finally, the focus now is on a comprehensive full-spectrum response to these incredibly complex threats. And that leaves us with one last, pretty provocative thought. If a war can be kicked off with a viral video, or a cyber attack on a power plant, or a huge disinformation campaign, what does that really mean for the future? As that line between peace and conflict gets blurrier and blurrier, how will we even know when a war has truly begun?
All right, let's jump right into it. Today, we're going to talk about a kind of conflict that's happening all around us, but it's one you can't always see. It's called fifth-generation warfare. We're going to break it all down through the lens of a book by Zaheer Ahmad Meer called The Generals of Pakistan. Let's get into how this invisible war is really fought, and more importantly, how it's defended against.
Right off the bat, the author, Mr. Meer, just lays it out with this quote. It's powerful stuff. You gotta forget what you think you know about war. Tanks, soldiers, all that. The new battlefields, there are hearts, minds, screens, and servers. This is all about a war of perception. It's fought online, on our phones, and inside our own heads. The goal isn't to capture a city, it's to break the will of a nation.
So, okay, an invisible war. What does that even mean? What are we actually fighting here? Well, the book does a great job of helping us put a clear definition on this whole concept. And here we go. This really gets to the heart of it. The key phrase to lock onto here is non-kinetic. So what's that mean? It means the weapons aren't bullets or bombs. They're things like tweets, fake news, doctored videos, you name it. The real goal isn't to occupy physical territory, it's to occupy your mind, to create so much chaos and division that a country just starts to crumble from the inside out. All right, so how on earth do you fight an enemy you can't even see? It's a huge question. The Generals of Pakistan actually lays out a pretty comprehensive, multi-layered defense strategy. Let's break it down. So as you can see, the book details 5 key pillars of defense. First up, narrative protection. Because look, in a war of ideas, the story you tell is everything. Next, cyber shielding, which is all about protecting the nation's digital backbone. Then there's economy security integration, because a strong, stable economy is a really powerful defense in itself. Fourth, technological adaptation. You have to stay ahead of the curve in this game. And finally, maybe the most important one of all, national psychological resilience. Now that last pillar, that national psychological resilience, that is so critical that it really deserves its own focus because, as Mr. Meer explains, this isn't just a job for the government or the military. No way. In this new kind of war, every single citizen is on the front line. And that's really the multi-million-dollar question, isn't it? If the war is being fought for our hearts and minds, then we, the people, aren't just the targets. We're also the most powerful line of defense. So what does that actually look like in practice? Well, the book gives a really clear call to action. It starts with the simple stuff, right? Like just take a second to verify information before you hit share. But it goes so much deeper than that. It's about actively fighting negativity, promoting unity, and getting really good at spotting and shutting down propaganda when you see it. Every fact you check, every story of unity you share, it's like you're adding another brick to the nation's defenses.
And this quote from the book, it just says it all, doesn't it? When you boil it all down, the ultimate defense in this new age of conflict isn't some fancy technology or a new weapon system. It's the unity and the mental strength of the people. An informed, united, and resilient public, that is a shield that propaganda and lies just can't break.
So when you pull all these threads together, the book, The Generals of Pakistan, actually paints a pretty confident picture of the nation's ability to handle these modern challenges. The final message from the author really starts here. The threat is subtle, it's everywhere, and it's designed from the ground up to be completely unseen. But the book's conclusion is one of real confidence. Mr. Meer argues that even though this threat is shadowy and hard to pin down, Pakistan is absolutely prepared to face it head-on. So what's that readiness built on? According to the book, it all comes down to these 3 things. Having leadership that actually understands this new battlefield, having intelligence that can spot these invisible threats, and most importantly, having a sense of national unity that works as the ultimate shield. And so we'll leave you with this question to think about. In an age where the threats are invisible, what is a nation's strongest shield? The Generals of Pakistan seems to suggest the answer isn't found in weapons, but in the collective spirit and resilience of its people. What do you think? Thanks for joining us for this explainer.